week, restaurants around the country are running out of time. An estimated 16,000 permanently closed since March.
The golden era of American dining is dead, murdered by corporate executives who traded quality for profit margins. 8 iconic chains are bleeding out in 2026. TGI Fridays, Hooters, Boston Market, Bahama Breeze. The entire chain wiped off the American map. That's not a rough patch. That's a massacre. And these aren't random closures. There's a pattern behind every single one. Costs go up, quality goes down, prices climb, portions shrink. You notice, you stop going. And somewhere in the middle, a private equity firm walks away with the cash. Here are the 8 chains shutting their doors right now. And the one at number 1 that isn't just closing locations. It's shutting down its entire United States operation forever. 8. Papa John's. You remember Friday nights. The doorbell rings. The smell of garlic sauce and hot cheese fills the room. For a long time, Papa John's successfully positioned itself as the premium delivery option. Better ingredients, better pizza. That was the foundational promise they built their entire empire upon. But in 2026, that promise is officially dead, and the company is bleeding out on the balance sheet. Early last year, the corporate executives celebrated opening their 6,000th global restaurant. They popped champagne in the boardroom. But down on the street level, the actual franchise owners operating the stores in your neighborhood were suffocating. The financial reality caught up with them. The company recently announced the brutal, permanent closure of over 200 locations across North America, with another 100 officially on the chopping block for next year. 300 total stores wiped off the map. When a pizza giant permanently shutters almost 10% of its domestic footprint, you know the foundation is rotting. Why is this happening? Because sales plunged and corporate greed took over the supply chain. When the wholesale cost of food skyrocketed, the corporate office refused to take a hit to their massive profit margins. Instead, they squeezed the local franchisees through forced commissary purchases. Franchisees are forced to buy their dough and ingredients directly from the corporate supply chain at inflated prices. Those local owners then handed that massive bill directly to you. Today, you regularly pay $25 for a pizza that tastes increasingly like cardboard. The dough used to be the main selling point. Now, workers report that the commissary dough arrives frozen or stiff, lacking the fresh, airy texture that built the brand. And let us talk about those better ingredients. Have you looked at the ingredient list for that famous garlic dipping sauce recently? It is a highly processed chemical cocktail of soybean oil, artificial flavors, and harsh preservatives specifically designed to sit on a warehouse shelf for months on end. There is barely any real butter in it. It is flavored vegetable oil masquerading as a premium side item. Furthermore, the chain weaponized delivery fees. You look at your app and see a $5 or $6 delivery surcharge. But here is the tea. That massive delivery fee does not go to the driver. It goes straight into the corporate register, while you are still expected to tip the underpaid worker who brought the food to your door in their own personal vehicle, paying for their own gas. They abandoned their quality, they jacked up their prices, and you noticed. You started ordering from local mom-and-pop pizzerias that use real cheese and pay their drivers fairly. Papa John's got greedy, and now they are closing 300 doors as a direct consequence. The pizza empire is crumbling, but the next chain on our list proves that the casual dining weekend is officially dead. 7. TGI Fridays. The bold red and white stripes. The ridiculous flare on the suspenders. The stained glass lamps. For decades, TGI Fridays was the ultimate Friday night celebration destination. You went there for the loaded potato skins, the famous Jack Daniel's glazed ribs, and a chaotic, fun atmosphere. It was the sanctuary of the American working class looking for a cheap, fun night out. But the party is permanently over. In April of 2026, TGI Fridays announced the abrupt and permanent closure of roughly 30 massive locations as part of an ongoing, desperate restructuring effort. This massive wave of shutdowns comes after years of quietly boarding up restaurants across the country in the dead of night. What went wrong? Private equity extraction, and sheer corporate delusion. Over the last few years, the corporate overlords decided that affordable wasn't a word they cared about anymore. they jacked up the prices of their most basic appetizers. A plate of frozen deep-fried mozzarella sticks suddenly cost $15. A basic, unremarkable cheeseburger started creeping toward the $20 mark. They thought they could charge premium, upscale steakhouse prices for heavily processed, microwaved bar food. If you look closely at the modern TGI Fridays kitchen, it is barely a kitchen at all. It is an assembly line of industrial microwaves and deep fryers churning out frozen, pre-packaged corporate slop. The days of line cooks preparing fresh appetizers are gone. The food arrives on trucks in plastic bags, gets dropped in a vat of oil, and gets placed on a plate. During the pandemic, they tried to game the system by turning their kitchens into ghost kitchens. They cooked food for fake delivery app brands like Mr. Beast Burger inside TGI Fridays kitchens. This overwhelmed their kitchen staff, ruined ticket times for the actual dining room guests, and further degraded the quality of the main menu. They traded their dining room experience for a quick buck on Uber Eats. They assumed the sheer nostalgia of the red and white stripes would keep you walking through the door no matter how much they abused your wallet. It didn't. Foot traffic plummeted. They abandoned the working-class families who built their brand. You simply cannot charge luxury prices for a frozen appetizer heated by an underpaid teenager in a microwave. TGI Fridays got greedy. They ruined the casual dining experience, and the American consumer walked away. Casual dining is dying, but the next chain proves that not even a massive gimmick can save you from Chapter 11 bankruptcy. 6. Hooters. The wings, the outfits, the controversial but undeniable cultural footprint. For decades, Hooters was an absolute juggernaut of the American sports bar industry. They expanded globally, leaning entirely on their specific brand of hospitality and the promise of a cold beer and a hot plate of chicken. But in 2026, the nostalgia evaporated, and the company is in freefall. Hooters recently entered Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. They are restructuring and desperately trying to sell off their company-owned restaurants to private franchise groups just to stop the massive financial bleeding. Why is a global cultural icon suddenly going bankrupt? Because the modern consumer sees right through the terrible food quality, and the generational shift left them behind. When the initial gimmick wears off, what are you actually paying for? You are paying premium sports bar prices for tiny, rubbery chicken wings. The breading is notoriously soggy. The signature sauces are packed to the brim with high fructose corn syrup, artificial coloring, and cheap, inflammatory seed oils. The corporate executives relied entirely on the brand image and neglected the kitchen. They thought you wouldn't notice the terrible food if the servers smiled enough and the televisions were loud enough. They relied on a captive audience of sports fans who didn't care about culinary standards. But you did notice. When a basic basket of wings costs nearly $20, you expect them to be fresh, crispy, and high quality. Competitors like Wingstop and local sports bars elevated the wing game, leaving Hooters serving a relic of the 1990s. Furthermore, the brand failed to attract the younger generation. Gen Z consumers do not frequent the restaurant concept. The demographic that built the chain aged out, and the corporate office failed to innovate a reason for anyone else to walk through the doors. They tried launching a fast casual spin-off called Hoots that focused only on the food and removed the waitresses, but it failed because everyone realized the food wasn't good enough to stand on its own. Hooters refused to evolve. They cheapened their core ingredients to maximize profits. And now, Wall Street vultures are carving up their corporate corpse in bankruptcy court. If seeing these massive corporations ruin your favorite meals just to inflate their stock prices makes your blood boil, hit that like button. Right now. Let's send a clear message to Wall Street that we see exactly what they are doing to our food. And make sure you subscribe to the channel because we expose the dark side of the restaurant industry every single week. Done? Good. Because a gimmick couldn't save the wings, but our next chain is actively watching its own franchise owners declare bankruptcy while fighting a bitter legal war. 5. Hardee's, and its sister brand Carl's Jr., used to be the home of the legendary Thick Burger. For years, they successfully marketed themselves as the edgy, premium alternative to McDonald's. They promised bigger portions, better beef, and a more adult fast food experience. But behind the scenes, the entire corporate system is violently collapsing. In 2026, a massive franchisee network named ARC Burger filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy protection. As a direct result of this financial collapse, 77 Hardee's locations shut down and terminated operations almost overnight. 77 stores closed permanently. This massive failure left over 1,600 frontline employees without jobs, with zero warning and zero severance. But the kicker is the lawsuit that followed. The franchisee blamed the corporate franchisor for the catastrophic disaster. They alleged in federal court that the corporate office failed to provide the promised marketing and technological support required to run the business. They alleged that corporate executives misrepresented the true financial condition of the restaurants before the purchase. Here is the wildest part of the legal filing. The lawsuit called out a specific chicken tenders promotion that corporate forced the local stores to run. The corporate office mandated that franchisees sell these specific chicken tenders at a severe discount during a period when the wholesale price of raw chicken skyrocketed by 30%. Corporate forced their own local owners to run a promotion that mathematically guaranteed they would lose money on every single order. They cannibalized their own business partners just to drive top-line revenue numbers for the corporate spreadsheet. They wanted the brand to look busy to investors, even if it meant bankrupting the people actually running the fryers. The menu also suffered from massive identity confusion. Hardee's tried to be a premium burger joint, charging $10 for a sandwich, while simultaneously pushing cheap value meals to compete with Wendy's. Customers got confused. You cannot market yourself as premium while your physical restaurants feature cracked drive-through menus, broken intercoms, and faded signage. Hardee's executives got greedy. They squeezed their own franchisees to the breaking point, and now the stores are boarded up and the employees are out on the street. Franchisees are suing corporate, but our next chain tried to gouge you directly with the most hated pricing model in human history. 4. Wendy's. Wendy's used to be the fun, edgy brand on the internet. Their social media account was famous for roasting their competitors. They bragged about their fresh, never-frozen beef. They were the home of the beloved 4 for $4 value meal. But the friendly mask slipped, and they revealed their true nature. In 2026, Wendy's announced they are permanently closing roughly 300 underperforming locations across the country. Their global sales recently dropped by 10%. Why are people fleeing the brand in record numbers? Because Wendy's forgot they were a fast food restaurant. A basic Dave's single combo meal now routinely costs $12 to $15 in many major markets. Customers pointed out the absurdity of this pricing strategy. You can walk into a sit-down restaurant like Texas Roadhouse or Chili's and get a handcrafted diner burger, steak fries, and a drink for $10. Wendy's charges you more money than a sit-down restaurant, but they make you eat out of a greasy paper bag in the front seat of your car. They also introduced a breakfast menu that cost the company tens of millions of dollars in marketing. They forced franchisees to open earlier, adding massive labor costs. But the American consumer didn't break their morning routines. People kept going to local coffee shops or McDonald's, leaving Wendy's franchisees bleeding cash during the morning shift. But do not forget their ultimate greedy fantasy. They got on an earnings call and told wealthy investors they were testing dynamic pricing. Surge pricing for your lunch. They wanted to use digital menu boards to artificially raise the price of a bacon cheeseburger during the lunchtime rush, simply because they knew you were hungry and stuck in the drive-thru line. These digital menu boards use artificial intelligence to track license plates, monitor the length of the drive-thru line, and adjust prices in real time based on local demand. If the line is long, the price goes up. The internet lost its collective mind. The backlash was severe and immediate. Wendy's backpedaled frantically, claiming they only wanted the technology to offer discounts during slow hours, but the damage was permanently done. You do not spend $30 million on artificial intelligence hardware to hand out coupons. They showed you exactly who they are. They are a massive corporation that feels entitled to your wallet. You responded by taking your hard-earned money to the local diner down the street. Now, 300 stores are gone forever. If the idea of a burger chain surge pricing your lunch makes you want to cook at home forever, hit the subscribe button right now. We do not buy the corporate public relations spin, and neither should you. And drop a comment below telling me, Which of these restaurants finally pushed you too far? What was the exact moment you said, "Never again"? Let's keep going. Because Wendy's tried to surge price your lunch, but the next empire on our list is closing 400 locations because they turned your morning coffee into a stressful factory line. 3. Starbucks. For an entire generation, Starbucks was the ultimate small daily luxury. It was the comfortable third place between your home and your office. It was the place where you could sit down in a plush chair, open a laptop, and drink something that cost slightly more than it should, but felt entirely worth the premium experience. Now, it is a chaotic, overpriced, high-stress nightmare. In 2026, Starbucks is undergoing a massive, painful restructuring, officially closing roughly 400 North American locations. For a mega brand that used to open a new store on every single street corner, this is a massive, shocking retreat. What happened to the coffee giant? Pure, unfiltered corporate greed and an obsession with mobile data. They jacked up the prices so aggressively that it broke consumer habits. A basic, sugary latte now regularly costs $7 or $8. They weaponized the modifier tax. You want oat milk? That is an extra $1.50. You want cold foam? Add another $1.25. A drink that appears as $5 on the menu quickly becomes $9 at the register. But they didn't just relentlessly squeeze the customer. They declared war on their own workers. While corporate executives collected massive compensation packages, the actual baristas running the stores were squeezed to the breaking point. When overworked employees across the country begged for better conditions and voted to unionize, corporate fought back. They cut operating hours, fought the organizing efforts, and punished the very people making the coffee. They deliberately destroyed the cafe experience to maximize app orders. If you walk into a typical Starbucks today, the comfortable cafe vibe is dead. Many remodeled locations physically removed the comfortable seating to discourage people from staying. They want you in and out. The pickup counter is jammed with chaotic, overflowing mobile orders. The baristas are visibly exhausted, understaffed, and frantically trying to keep up with an algorithm that double books their ticket times. The sticker machine spits out orders faster than a human can physically steam milk. You pay $8 to stand in a loud, sterile room, waiting 20 minutes for a sugary drink that is mostly ice and artificial syrup. They destroyed the premium coffeehouse experience just to maximize their mobile order profits. You noticed the steep decline in quality and the insane price tags, and you started brewing your own coffee at home. Now, 400 stores are turning off the neon green mermaid sign forever. Starbucks ruined your morning, but the next chain is a literal crime scene of unpaid bills, leaving the American dinner completely abandoned. 2. Boston Market. Boston Market invented the concept of the home meal replacement. The hot rotisserie chicken, the creamy mashed potatoes, the sweet cornbread. It was a staple for busy American families who wanted a real dinner but didn't have the time to cook from scratch. Today, it is a terrifying corporate graveyard. Once boasting hundreds of sprawling, successful restaurants across the country, Boston Market completely and totally collapsed. In 2026, they are down to just a couple dozen rogue locations desperately clinging to life. The company is drowning in massive lawsuits and unpaid bills. The corporate office stopped paying their main food distributor, US Foods. When you stop paying the food distributor, the food stops arriving. Customers reported walking into Boston Market locations at dinner time, only to be told the restaurant had no chicken, no meatloaf, and was only serving side dishes. They stopped paying their local landlords. They stopped paying their trash collection services, leading to horrific sanitation issues at the remaining open stores. In some states, like New Jersey, the government stepped in and forcibly shut down dozens of locations in a single day because the company owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid back wages to their own minimum wage workers. This was a masterclass in private equity destruction. A businessman named Jay Pandya bought the company and drove it straight into the dirt. They extracted the remaining value from the brand name, stopped paying the operational bills, and left the local workers abandoned. Furthermore, the business model was eclipsed by the grocery store. Why would a family drive to Boston Market and pay $20 for a chicken dinner when they can walk into Costco and buy a massive fresh rotisserie chicken for $4.99? The grocery store industry weaponized the rotisserie chicken as a loss leader, and Boston Market refused to adapt their menu or lower their prices to compete. You cannot successfully sell comfort food when the corporate office refuses to pay the people physically roasting the chicken. Boston Market is the ultimate zombie chain, a hollow shell of its former self, and it is breathing its last desperate breath. Boston Market is a zombie, but our #1 chain isn't just closing a few underperforming stores. They are shutting down their entire United States operation forever. 1. Bahama Breeze. Bahama Breeze was the ultimate tropical escape for the American middle class. For years, it was the specific place you went for a massive, brightly colored, sugary cocktail and a giant plate of coconut shrimp. The entire concept was meticulously designed to make a random Tuesday night in Ohio feel like an expensive vacation in the Caribbean. But the vacation is permanently over. In 2026, shocking news broke across the restaurant industry. Bahama Breeze is shutting down all United States locations entirely, every single one of them. The entire brand is wiped off the domestic map. How does a massive, popular chain cease to exist in a matter of months? It all comes down to the brutal, unforgiving reality of the 2026 restaurant economy and the cold calculation of portfolio management. Bahama Breeze is owned by Darden Restaurants, the massive conglomerate that also owns Olive Garden and Longhorn Steakhouse. When corporate executives looked at the spreadsheets, Bahama Breeze was the bleeding anchor dragging down the portfolio. The chain was incredibly expensive to operate. The massive restaurant footprints required enormous amounts of energy to heat and cool. The elaborate tropical decor required constant maintenance. The extensive menus featured highly perishable fresh seafood, leading to massive food waste costs. When rampant inflation hit and wholesale food costs skyrocketed, the parent company tried to pass those costs directly onto the consumer. But there is a hard, mathematical limit to how much a middle-class family will pay for a frozen margarita and a plate of jerk chicken pasta. When a casual dining check for 2 people consistently hits the $100 mark, the customer stops showing up. The fake palm trees and the tropical aesthetic couldn't hide the undeniable fact that the actual food quality dipped while the menu prices soared. Furthermore, the alcohol margins collapsed. The entire casual dining industry relies on massive markups on alcohol to stay afloat. But younger generations are drinking less alcohol than previous generations, and when they do drink, they refuse to pay $15 for a cocktail loaded with cheap artificial dyes like Red 40 and massive sugar spikes. Instead of trying to fix the fundamental issues or lower their profit margins, corporate pulled the plug entirely. Darden decided to focus all their resources on the highly profitable Olive Garden breadsticks and cut the tropical loser loose. They locked the doors, turned off the island music, and fired everyone. It is the ultimate cautionary tale for the entire industry. If you continuously charge luxury prices for basic, casual food, the American consumer will bankrupt you. What you have just seen from these 8 massive chains is not a temporary blip in the economy. It is the opening round of a brutal fight that the restaurant industry cannot win without fundamentally changing how they treat you. The playbook that destroyed these companies is identical. Raise the prices, shrink the portions, squeeze the local workers, and sell the beloved brand to Wall Street vultures who strip it for parts. But here is the incredible news. You proved that walking away works. Massive chains do not panic because of a nice letter. They panic because you completely stopped showing up and their revenue disappeared overnight. Your absence is the only language these massive corporate holding companies understand. Every single time you choose a local, family-owned restaurant over a debt-loaded private equity chain, you vote for one version of this industry to survive and another one to collapse entirely. These 8 chains made a massive, arrogant bet. They bet that you would keep paying no matter how badly they treated you. They lost. Like this video and subscribe to our channel. Do not let your friends waste their hard-earned money at a zombie chain. You do not owe these companies a single dime. You never did. For more insights into the fast food industry and the secrets they try to hide, Check out the next video popping up on your screen. Click on it before you forget. We will see you there.